Hello, and welcome to Carrier Code, your inside track to the strategies, stories, and leaders driving the trucking industry forward. Today's episode is sponsored by Driver's Legal Plan, CDL Ticket Defense for Professional Drivers, and produced by Bulldog, Trucking's podcast pros. I'm Christy Choice, joined by my co-host, Rocco Marari. How's it going today, Rocco? Hey, Rocco!
Christy, it is going well. My goodness, what a year. What a year we've had, huh?
Yes, I mean, quite the year. I can't believe that we're almost at the very end of the year. Even doing this episode, all that we've accomplished this year has really been a whirlwind.
It has. And I think today is going to be a great time to just maybe, share some insight of what 2025 has been to our listeners. And, they can, hear the ups and downs and the excitement. And then we can really chat about what's to come next year. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds good. A good old year-end review. Never hurt nobody. I like it a lot.
That.
Yeah. Well, so one, and I don't even know when this was. This was many, many years ago, but someone who I really, really look up to in leadership says that at the end of every year, they step back and they ask themselves a few questions. Number one, just really a debrief on how the year went. But what did I do that I want to continue doing?
Oh,
What did I do that I want to stop doing? And is there anything I didn't do that I need to start doing?
sure.
Okay. And that was their framework for having, their own personal debrief about, their professional life and their personal life. And I was like, whoa, like I could totally like chop my life up into, categories or segments and kind of ask myself those questions to decide, how things went from my own perspective to become more self-aware, but also to help goal set for next year.
No, Christy, that's a great idea. And I never thought about looking at it that way. In the past, I just reflect on what's worked and what hasn't worked. And, we just try to make some changes on the fly in the future. I mean, listen, you know me, I have a tendency to go rogue at times. So we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, but that's a really, really good perspective. And what's funny is, looking back at the industry, I think a lot of times we fly by the seat of our pants. So everybody listening, take into account what Christy just said. I think that is a good lesson learned.
Yeah, I think so too. And so I try to remember that because the question that especially really resonates with me is is there anything that I'm doing that I need to stop doing? And the whole stop doing doesn't necessarily equate to failure. Sometimes it's just like, hey, I really need to pivot so that I can reach this goal, right? So anyway, it can get real deep real quick. And as we look back on our 2025 for Carrier Code, I mean, this was a really, really great year. And, Rocco, you and we're travelers. So we've been a little bit of everywhere. So I guess, how do you want to tackle this? Should we go by like quarters?
Yeah, I think we can. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
We could start with Q1 and fill our listeners in on, how really for those who maybe are catching on late to Carrier Code, let's go back real quick and just explain how this all came about. How's that sound, Christy?
For sure. Well, in quarter one, you, Justin, and I, and the rest of our lead ATA classmates attended an event or a set of meetings for the lead program in Washington, D.C. And that's where we came together officially as a team. And the rest is kind of history from there. Tell us what else happened there in D.C., Rocco.
Oh my goodness, we had so much that occurred that week. No, we actually, that's like you said, that's where we all came together as a group. But more importantly, I think we learned more about what each of our classmates were about. So I think that was the meeting where we all connected as a class, which was important because going forward throughout the year, we've gotten closer and closer and closer. And now now that we graduated, we all still keep in touch. I mean, daily pretty much at times. So I think that was a really pivotal point in the year for not only Carrier Code, but also I think for us as professionals in our growth, amongst our classmates. I think that was a really, really important part of 2025, at least in my eyes.
For sure. And without disclosing too many of the gory details, I knew very very quickly that we were going to be some folks who shake it up a little bit, because I think where we stand professionally, we are all wanting to push for change in the industry, but also are at these professional milestones where things are happening. We're taking on new projects, leading new sets of teams, expanding professionally. And I had set out some goals to really become more well-rounded and learn more about the industry. And I think the Lead ATA program helped me to do that. But also my role at 10th Street is something that I like to say it like this, I'm co-creating it, right? Everybody has a job description, but
Sure.
there's also some ways that, I can say, hey, this is something that I want to actively pursue. And I'm blessed to have the opportunity to co-create what this role looks like. Because for me, it's not typical industry relations. Um, it's a little bit of professional services, industry relations. There's quite a bit of nuance to what I do, but being able to have the freedom to do it, working with carriers and clients and trying to really move the industry forward and helping be a connector is something that brings me great joy. So, yay, 2025 was off to a really good start in quarter one for sure.
It was a busy quarter one. And from, like you said, we're both travelers. And oh gosh, I can't tell you how many just trade shows alone we did at Pedigree. I think we did 27, give or take one or two here or there, but it was a busy, busy year. On top of, like you said, we meet with our customers, we meet with our prospects. So, we're on the road out there learning more in depth about the industry. And, we also, work with oil and gas, construction, rental. So in my world, I got to learn not only what's affecting transportation, but what's affecting oil and gas, what's affecting rental, what's affecting construction. So, at times we think that we're alone out there in transportation and everybody else, everything's, going great, going smooth. Let me tell you, it's not. The pain we feel in transportation is the pain the other industries are seeing as well.
I believe that.
So
Yeah.
that was another big thing I've learned in 2025 is we're not alone out here. This is across all segments. So the more we can band together, I think the better it's going to be for us going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. Now, there are a couple of events that really stand out to me that I attended in quarter one of 2025. And I won't go through all of them because, again, we just travel too much. But Day with Disa held an event in Houston, and I was really excited about the opportunity to speak there. And of course, when I'm usually talking in front of an audience, I'm talking about safety management, which is a big passion of mine. Before trucking, it was just I didn't know much about the implications of unsafe driving, right? You see the big news headlines about wrecks and about trucks and about who did what and the family traveling for the holidays, God forbid something happens. But it really wasn't real to me until I got into the industry. And so being at conferences like Day with Diesel was really helpful, because they just bring a lot of transportation leaders together, and they have multiple verticals, right? So it's really an industry event where folks can go to grow and expand. It's always excited to contribute to that event. That was one from January specifically that really stood out to me as well. In addition to like conversions, R&R conference, I did that one as well. That one has a whole big story. We had a snowstorm, and when I tell you we were fighting to get there, fighting through the snow, wondering if the flight
Oh,
was canceled. I mean, that was just a bunch of shenanigans, but I made it there and back safely with a little snow on my boots, but safely nonetheless.
that's all right. You know, Looking back, we've done so many shows in Q1 and Q2 and Q3 and Q4, so they all tend to blend together for me. The one that stood out, and I spoke, I think, 4 events in Q1, Q2.
Okay.
This was a non-speaking event. It was Manifest.
Oh, good deal.
So Manifest is an event that I think every carrier should try to get to at least once. And the wonderful thing about Manifest, and again, I have nothing to do with Manifest. This isn't a paid sponsorship. But what I found interesting is if you use the Manifest app to connect with people, you can make so many connections with whatever segment of the industry you need to talk and learn about. It could be, telematics, it could be TMSs, it could be other carriers, it could be whatever you need. They give it to you at your fingertips. And you can set meetings, and they have meeting spaces available for everybody. Some are tables, some are, office. It's just a really well put together conference. And if you're an up and coming, tech company or somebody looking to break into the market, they have a special section right there for you to help you grow, to help you, if you're looking for VC money, if you're looking for PE money, whatever it may be, they're there to help you achieve that. So from my perspective, that was one of the more in-depth and really outstanding events that was put on in Q1 that I attended.
Love that. Now, again, we go so many places, so I guess we'll have to jump on over to quarter 2. And so for Carrier Code, of course, we decided that we were going to be a group, that we were going to do a podcast as our group project. But then in quarter 2, we were preparing to present at mid-year management. But I think we were together at ATA's safety management meeting,
Yes.
SSHR. You, me, and Justin. I
Yeah.
remember like hopping from session to session to
Yeah.
support you guys because you all are both on panels and stuff.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. What else do you remember from from quarter 2 from that
Oh,
meeting?
goodness. Quarter 2, I remember this vividly, is when we started hearing the talk about tariffs in the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's been a struggle to this day. I mean, and
Mhm.
you and I both, everybody here knows this is a very, very fluid conversation. Changes, second to second, just depending on what kind of mood people are in. So we have to be, that was something that we had to be, at least from the pedigree perspective, and I think the carrier perspective, you really have to try to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead and anticipate where the administration is going with the tariffs, and hope that hopefully what you're anticipating is where that lands. So I think that was one of the big things in Q2 that kind of started shifting the industry and making people just a little wary of where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. That was one of the big takes I've seen on, in Q2. That's not including, all our trade shows and everything else. This is something that impacts, again, not only our industry, but every industry associated with the US. So again, that was one of the big things that I saw, and one of the concerns that I still see to this day, that we really need to figure out how we're going to attack the tariff portion of this.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. I think so we came into, quarter 1 with that talk about tariffs, the tariff talk. But also, from a carrier perspective, there was just a lot of, talk about freight capacity, carriers who are struggling, right? Very just uncertain economic times. And although they're not any less uncertain, like there's just still been a continual push through the year that we've seen of, really the industry banding together to figure out like what the heck is going on and how can we together collectively, make sure that we're impacting change, but also just surviving.
Yeah.
Really, just making sure we're surviving. So, I mean, we did a lot of talk about, conferences with attendances dipping, but the reality is people are really just trying to figure it out. Companies are really struggling to figure out what the next steps are, and wanting to be flexible and responsive amid some of those executive orders that started coming out around quarter 2 as well.
And Christy, that really even bleeds in our Q3. If we're talking about this, we were talking about the dip in attendance, right? That again ties with these carriers. They're struggling. And if we, when we talk to them, and you and I do this probably more than the majority of our listeners, we're out there talking to multiple carriers a day. And I see it in their face, especially the smaller fleets, let's say, under 75 trucks. They're worried. I mean, they're stressed out on how they're going to keep the doors open, how they're going to keep the lights on. And then we see, the not mega fleet, but the big fleets, Carol Fulmer shut their doors,
Yes.
and how does that, think about that. That's a very large fleet that was very well ran.
Yeah.
And
For
when you
sure.
see a small family owned company and they hear about the Carol Fulmers of the world, the others shutting their doors, that affects their morale.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody's gonna say. That's gonna affect how their day-to-day goes, how their employees are, because now it's in the back of their head. If these large fleets can't, maintain through these tough economic times, how are we gonna do so? So, the struggle that I started to see in Q3 with these carriers has, still expanded into Q4 as we're, finishing up Q4, but I see a light. I see a light. I've spoken to carriers in different sectors. They're starting to see freight turn. Outside of transportation and construction and oil and gas, that's really starting to take a turn, which is good. It's a positive. Rentals starting to turn up. So I'm starting to see a shift. Now, do I think this is going to happen overnight? No, not at all. But I think, within 6 months, 8 months, we're really going to start to see that shift. And those who were able to persevere through these tough times are going to come through, and they're going to be stronger once we get through this economic turmoil.
Yeah, and although, we talk about the dip in attendance, the fact that people who do attend conferences, I see, like, a different type of resilience coming from them because they wanna make sure their networking is on point, that they really get, a lot out of the sessions, and so I know you and I were at an event, and I was sitting in the audience supporting you as you were speaking, and the questions were really, really, really good, right? And it's kind of like, hey, I paid to be here. I sacrificed a lot. I'm not going to miss this opportunity to ask questions and to engage and to be present. And so I saw that as a common thread now that I'm sitting in quarter 4, about to go into 2026. I'm like, you know what? The transportation industry continually shows up and shows out. I don't want to paint the picture that everybody is just so down on their luck and that we're not moving forward because we are. There's just some
Right.
ways that people are tightening up. They're just tightening up,
Yep.
right? And so it's not like, oh my gosh, everything is just woe is me. But it puts into perspective, how an individual's actions contribute to the whole, when we kind of look at it this way. And I think that that's really interesting that I was just able to kind of have that epiphany on camera here,
Well,
connecting those dots.
one thing I like to do, Christy, and if carriers aren't doing this, or even other vendors, when you have a team at a show, my team's expected to go to different, roundtable sessions, whatever it may be. When they come back, when we have our team meeting, they need to present on something they learned that will benefit the rest of the team.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a great exercise. So if you're sending people to these events and you have team members out there, when they come back, have them put a 5-10 minute little presentation together on what they learned that's going to help the organization grow as a whole. So now they're out there supporting the industry, but they're bringing items back to you, which is the whole point of these events and conferences, is to go out, learn what everybody else is doing, learn from their mistakes, learn from their wins, take those back so we can all grow as transportation leaders.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a really great idea. So, carriers out there, if you're not already doing something like that, you probably should start because that's a really great idea to make sure that people are truly, interacting and engaging, but also to make sure that everyone internally is getting the benefit of having sent those folks. And so, we talked a whole lot about English language proficiency, and how those regulations were becoming enforced during like the middle of the year. And I know there's been ongoing conversation about it. But then also NR2, thinking about the national registry updates and how that has impacted the industry with the electronic transmittal of med cards. And so there is a lot still left. I was talking to a carrier actually a couple weeks ago. We were having a good conversation about their driver qualification files and some other things that are on their list as we're in quarter 4. And I mentioned the regulatory changes, and they were like, wait, what? I didn't know that. And it's always shocking to me that people who don't know who are in those roles. So I get it, right? But also lean on your resources. If you're a carrier out there, lean on your resources, right? No man is an island. You don't have to go it alone. And there's no harm in saying, like, I didn't know that. Okay. Can you send me some information about that? Can you tell me? And in my role, I'm happy to have an open dialogue and a conversation about what these regulatory impacts are, but I'm not the foremost expert on them, right? A lot of times we're exploring and learning together because from my side on the vendor perspective is way different because I'm helping engineer solutions for these updates, whereas the carrier has a direct impact if they are not compliant with these regulations, right? So, we work together to make sure that folks have the benefit of having a well-rounded experience, but also that they're regulatorily compliant, right? That's the goal.
Yep.
Yep, that is definitely the goal. Okay, so carriers, if you're out there, we are just taking a little bit of a time to recap 2025. It has been a very interesting and very full year. And so as we continue to talk, it's like, whoa, there's more, there's more. But there will be more when we come back with the second segment. This is Carrier Code.
Carrier Code is sponsored by Driver's Legal Plan, CDL ticket defense for professional drivers. Hey, it's Rocco from Carrier Code. Every professional driver knows how important it is to protect your CDL. A single ticket can put your livelihood at risk, and that's where Driver's Legal Plan comes in. With just a phone call, you can get specialized CDL ticket defense for just $2.98 a week. Don't let a ticket jeopardize your trucking career. Contact Driver's Legal Plan today and let them defend you like they have more than 400,000 other cases. When you need CDL ticket defense, there is only one, Driver's Legal Plan. Call 1-800-580-8789 or visit driverslegalplan.com for your free consultation. Again, that's 1-800-580-8789 or driverslegalplan.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, this is the Carrier Code Podcast year end review, and we've been talking about quarter one, quarter two, 2025, and now we're kind of in quarter three, where a whole lot of behind the scenes work went into making Carrier Code Podcast and really getting it off the ground. Rocco, let's relive a little bit of that.
Oh, God, Christy. I remember the heat of Detroit, and I was in a sport coat
Yes.
without sunglasses, getting some photo shoots done. And that was great. That's where we met, our producer Scott for the first time in person. And he put up with us for quite a while. That was a great time. We got to go to Justin's hometown and got some great photos. And that was one of the fun parts. But there's also struggles, coming into play here. There is a lot of behind the scenes work that, to be honest, I didn't expect. I didn't think, maybe you and Justin didn't expect either, getting LLCs, meeting with attorneys. I mean, there is so much paperwork and legal work that needs to be done. Yeah. And it's not something that you would think what you would have to do in order to just have a podcast. And it's not like we had time to do it. I mean, I think we were planning a September launch. So we had to accomplish all this in a month and a half, 2 months. And there was a lot of back and forth and time consumption. And thank goodness for Justin keeping me on track, because we had a lot of documents going back and forth. And so, that's one of the things that I remember the most about how we got here in Q3. It was just a busy, busy, busy time for Carrier Code. Yet we still had our full-time jobs that we had to give time for, and travel and so forth. What about you, Chrissy? What were your Q3 thoughts?
Oh my goodness. You said some things that kind of sent me back there, right? It sent me back to those moments. But I remember being on the road, traveling and taking calls and connecting with Bulldog. And really, when we decided that we did the podcast presentation at mid-year, got a lot of wonderful feedback, and everyone was so excited about it. And so then, fast forward a couple of months, we're at another meeting, we find out that we won, woohoo, and so we got our trophies, and, that was definitely a wonderful moment. But what started off as just like, oh, we're going to pursue this. And we were fine to record on Zoom or Teams and just put it together ourselves and use our own resources to make our dream a reality. But when I tell you, when Bulldog entered the chat, it took it to the next level. And that's that work that you were talking about, Rocco, right?
Yeah,
because we had to make sure like that if we're going to execute and put out a really, really great product for that people would be wanting to listen to and would be impactful, like we really just had to really rely on the experts to help us. And so Bulldog Works has been so great, like helping us get it off the ground, but like giving us things to think about that we would otherwise have not even considered. And so therefore we did a photo shoot, and we were, making sure that from a legal perspective everything was tied up, and that we could continue to pursue this passion project in a way that covered us, but also that accounted for, that industry information that people need. They need to hear it. They need to know it.
Christy, and that really touched on a point for me. Listeners,
Mhm.
if there is something you want to do, get off your ass and go do it.
Oh,
Just do
say
it.
that.
Yeah. I mean, we did it. We work full-time jobs. But
Yeah.
put the people around you who will help you succeed. Scott with Bulldog has done that. The Bulldog team has done that. They allow us to do what we're good at. They do what they're good at. If there is something you want to do, go do it. Carriers, if you feel something like a podcast is good for your organization, do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Listeners, if there's a passion you have, go pursue it. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to go back to your day-to-day. But you'll never know until you take that step, take that leap, and go do it. So that was one of the big things that Q3 really drove home to me is get off your ass and go do it.
Yes, indeed. And when we did it, the rest followed. It was amazing. And so, really excited that we were able to launch Carrier Code Podcast. And the socials kind of just blew all up and all this wonderful stuff. But we recorded a few episodes, but then we started having some guests. And so, one of our first guests was Marilyn Serber, and we had a really good conversation with her about multi-generational communication. I remember sitting there thinking, this is like really helpful. Like every carrier needs this information. And hey, Rocco, you and I, we also talked to our right-hand person in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to Brian Weebold, and you talked to Amanda.
Yep.
And it was fun. Wasn't that a fun episode?
That was actually one of my favorite episodes. And the reason, at least for me, and like I said, Amanda and I have known each other now 14 years, probably 13, 14 years, something like that. It's been a long time. But she, again, like I stated in the episode, she was the reason I grew within the industry. And we remain friends, and we, joke around, and she gives me a hard time. And it's just a great, it's a great relationship. And, you and Brian have that. And I guarantee every other person in this industry has that. And for us to be able to share that, to our listeners and give them a little bit of insight of how we got here, who was a person that really helped us grow and drives us. I think that was one of my favorite episodes because our listeners can really get an insight on our, our minds. And I thought that was just great.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was really, really helpful. Now, around this time, our business partner, Justin Copeland, had to just step away, is still behind the scenes and still cheering us on. So there was a little bit of a shuffle there, and everybody was like, wait, what's going on? And I'm like, no, everything is good. I promise everything is fine. So we were meeting folks in person and really just excited that of the warm welcome we received in the industry, which has been great. Now, there are 2 other episodes that we have to talk about. I mean, we love all of them, right? But
Yes.
Interviewing Greg Morin from Brown Dog Carriers was a true highlight. This is Carrier Code, by the way. And so to be able to hear his story about how his business started and where it is, I see Greg at all these conferences and events, and we get to hang out and go to dinners and kind of always connect. He's a person I always make sure to connect with. It's really great to highlight a story of perseverance, resilience, and of strength, right? And so I love what they're doing up in Maine, and that was a really fun episode.
That was.
We got to talk about Dan. What do you think? Oh my gosh.
So I thought that was a wonderful episode. I learned, and I've known Dan a long time as well. And I learned so much about Dan as a person through that episode. But more importantly, I really hope our listeners learn more about what the ATA is out there doing. Because again, the media shows a different light at times, and other organizations maybe shed a different light. But when you really look at, they're a grassroots organization that's here to help the carrier. So that was, again, one of my favorite episodes because, again, we got an inside scoop on what the ATA and Dan are all about.
Yeah. So if you haven't taken a look at those episodes with Greg Morin or with Dan Horvath, take a listen. Go back and watch those episodes because they're really, really good. And one of the things Dan said, he said, "Oh, wow, I didn't pay them to say all these wonderful things about ATA, but I feel like I'm a success story. You get out of it what you put into it. And because we've made a decision at 10th Street to really support ATA and to come alongside of that wonderful advocacy organization to push things forward, I am personally able to say that I'm benefiting from it, right? By being able to go to conferences and events and MC&E was not too long ago, and we call it the Super Bowl of the transportation conferences for
It is.
sure. And it was just that. It was amazing this year. We had a really, really, really great time.
Yeah, it did not disappoint, did it? We got to go up on stage. I didn't trip. My whole goal walking up on stage was Rocco, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip. I may have made other classmates nervous because I told them, just don't trip and you'll be fine. But no, we got to go up on stage, graduate. ATA surprised us. They had a recognition for us on stage about Carrier Code podcast and so forth from our lead class. So that was something that I was not expecting at all. That was a wonderful surprise.
That was.
But again, that was a great time to where it showed all our efforts throughout the year, all the time we spent came full circle as one. And we got to sit there and reap the rewards of that. And I thought that was just a wonderful, fantastic time.
I thought so too. And so we were just really, really shocked to have been mentioned up on stage. And that was really cool. And so, and then here we are sitting at the end of the year, recapping our year. And Rocco, if I had to say, a couple of words to summarize 2025, I would say busy, a whirlwind, but I would say impactful.
I like that. Yes.
There was a lot of impactful conversations and engagements, a lot of time for us to really dig in and to, kind of pour into ourselves professionally, but also, this side gig ain't too bad. I really love what we've been able to create together.
The one word I have is intentional. So again, as you all, everybody knows, I can go rogue. I can get a little wild at times. I can fly off script. But this year, everything we've done together, us three as a group, has been intentional leading up to where we're at now. And for me, that is something that's huge. Because again, I typically have a tendency to go rogue. So I love that aspect. And that was just a wonderful memory for this year for me.
Yeah. Now, even with all of our ramblings today, we still haven't even touched the surface of what 2025 truly was. But all that to say, we have a lot to look forward to, but we have a lot to reflect on, right? And we are so grateful for those who continue to take a look, those who continue to email us at know the code at carriercodepodcast.com, of course, and interact and engage with us. It is wild to see how many folks, have really supported us. And I love it. And it just makes my heart so, so, so happy. So yay, Carrier Code. We're doing it.
Well, Christy, I think we have thousands upon thousands of hours of listening from our listeners on here. That doesn't sound right, but in my mind, it was going to come out right. But they listened for thousands of minutes. God, am I saying hours, minutes? Whatever I'm trying to say. It's been a long time.
Yes.
And it was something that I never would have expected to this day.
We have a lot to be thankful for, a lot to be grateful for. We're going to be taking some time away, of course, for the holidays, but I'm looking forward to 2026. Carrier Code Podcast is coming out swinging in 2026 with some really, really great episodes. We want to be responsive to what our viewers, our listeners want to hear, want to see. And so I cannot wait to start sharing the lineup for 2026 and to also really bring you in a little bit more into our world, what it's like to have a full-time role, to be travelers, to be impacting the industry, but also to be working on bringing you content that's relevant, that's helpful, and that is flexible. Because sometimes you get the information, it's like, oh, we got to share it, we got to record. So it's been really, really cool. But I cannot wait to keep doing this in 2026. What about you, Rocco?
I'm going to tease one thing, Christy. There'll be some
Oh
live
gosh.
podcasts going on. So just wait and see. It's going to be a great time. You'll see us in person. You'll see us doing the podcast, and then you'll get a behind the scenes look on really what we do. And you know what? If you're at the show or wherever we may be at, do you want to be on? Let us know. We'll see what we can do.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. There goes Rocco going rogue. I was like, gosh, what is he going to say? What is Rocco?
Well, you never know. You never know.
You
never
truly
know what's
never
going to
know.
happen.
No, you never
never
know. You never know.
It's a roll of the
Oh,
dice, Christy. It's a
my
roll of the dice.
goodness. Well, I want to leave everyone with the 3 questions that we first started with. Carriers out there, as you are listening, I want you to take this away. When you are looking at your 2025, or either you've just finished a big project or hit a milestone in your career, what did I do that I want to continue doing? What did I do that I want to probably stop doing for whatever reason? And then what have I not done that I probably need to start doing? Those 3 questions of reflection are really going to help as you move forward. And hey, even make it like a team building exercise, because until you really do that good old root cause analysis and decide, like, how did I get where I am and what are my goals for the future, you can't continue to grow. And I think this podcast is proof that we want to make sure that the industry continues to grow, develop, and thrive. And we first have to start their work personally so that our industry is the beneficiary of all of that information. Any takeaways from you, Rocco?
I have one.
Okay.
And you've heard it a couple times already throughout the podcast today. Get off your ass.
Yeah.
That's it. Get off your ass. That's my takeaway. I challenged the carriers, the listeners, to do that. I'm going to get a shirt made that says get off your ass. So that's mine. That's mine.
Well said. Well said. Well, if folks want to interact with us, they can go to knowthecode@carriercodepodcast.com. We would love to hear about your success stories and your takeaways from 2025 and what you're looking forward to in 2026. We're also committed to bringing you really, really great episodes as we move through 2026 and beyond. And the best is absolutely yet to come. Carrier Code is sponsored by Drivers Legal Plan, CDL Ticket Defense for Professional Drivers, and produced by Bulldog, Trucking's podcast pros. New episodes drop every week, so be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss an episode. You can listen on your favorite podcast platform, watch on YouTube, or visit us anytime at carriercodepodcast.com. You'll find us on all the social channels at Carrier Code Podcast. Thanks again so much for joining us. Happy holidays from the Carrier Code Podcast team. And until next time, I'm Christy.
And I'm Rocco.
And this is Carrier Code.